Hi, welcome to my channel. This is HC BookTube. My name is Heather, and I am going to do my April wrap-up, the books I read in April. This is my first official wrap-up video, so just something to, I think you ought to know before we do these wrap-ups. First of all, when I do my wrap-ups, I'm not just doing the books I read physically, but I'm also doing the audio books I've read, and also the books I'm reading with my husband, and the books we've read with our daughter. So you will get some kids' books in here if you happen to have a kid, or if you just like reading children's books yourself, nothing wrong with that. Or middle-aged novels. Also, I'm not going to ever give my ratings because I am very, very generous. To be honest, I'm very, very generous with my 5-star ratings. So it's almost kind of pointless, basically. It's like if you know I enjoyed it, you know that 5-star. So, um, and another thing, you would find no niche here. I do not just read one genre or one type of book. I read basically everything. you, when you, if you follow my channel, you will see classics as well as newer novels. You will see books of all genres and all formats. Obviously, I'll be talking about some audiobooks as well. So, here we go. We're going to start. First book I read was Boleyn Trader by Philippa Gregory. I was given this as a Christmas gift by a friend who knows that I like Philippa Gregory. But in all honesty, I was kind of nervous about reading this because, I mean, how many different stories can you write about the Tudor family? And what's funny is that Philippa Gregory herself asked that question in the afterward. Afterwards, she's like, "How many books about the Tudors can you read?" But she did come up with a new, exciting story. I was very impressed. This focuses on Jane Boleyn, who is Anne Boleyn's sister-in-law, the wife of her brother, Anne's brother, George. And she was the lady in waiting, the main lady in waiting for the first 5 of King Henry VIII's wives. Now, we don't start with her, even though she served in history, she served under Catherine of Aragon. We don't start with that. We start in the middle of Anne's reign. So we get to see her reign, her serve her sister-in-law at the beginning of the book. Now, Philippa Gregory says that we don't know a lot about Jane, in all honesty. Nothing much is written about her. But she was a spy. And she would spy on the court and report to Thomas Cromwell and Thomas Howard, who would have been her husband George's uncle. So she was a very interesting character, I find. Even though most of the characters made up by Philippa herself, I found her a very interesting character because she's a traitor, she's a spy, kind of cold-hearted in a way, but you could tell she also respects and even likes 5 queens that she serves under. Even though they're all very different queens, she takes her job as a lady in waiting very seriously and puts her heart into it. But she also puts her heart into being a spy. So, I really like that. And I know Philippa Gregory gets a lot of criticism for not being historically accurate, but I don't care. She tells a good story, and that's all I care about. But, I also read The Big Red Book. This is a book of Rumi's poetry. It's edited, I suppose, and introduced by Coleman Barks. He pretty much writes an introduction for each section of this book. The book's divided into sections. In all honesty, I could have done without Coleman Barks' introductions. He didn't really interest me. But I really love the poetry. Now, if you don't know about Rumi, he was a 13th century Persian poet. He was born in what is now known as Afghanistan. 1207 was the date of his birth. And he was a scholar, studied religion as well as academics, and he eventually met this man, mystic named Shams of Tabis, and they had a really, really close spiritual relationship. And then Shams disappeared, and historians believe that he may have been murdered and just done away with. Um, I'm allowed to say murdered. He was unalived. Please don't cancel me. But uh, so that's what they believe in history that happened to him. And so when he disappeared, Rumi, of course, really took that to heart, and that's when he started writing his poetry. And a lot of his poetry is either to or about Shams himself. And I really enjoyed it. It's he not only talks about his relationship with Shams, but he also talks about Sham's teaching, his mystical teachings and religious and spiritual teachings, and how we can benefit in the world even today from that. And I have to be honest. I love the poetry, but a lot of times when I was reading this, I was like, gee, I wish I could write poetry like this. I wish I wrote poetry like this when I was in college and getting graded on poetry, because I wouldn't mind handing in poetry like this. But I didn't. I wrote my own poetry and got graded on it. But they weren't all bad grades. I got some good grades. um, and I also read A Stage Set for Villains. Uh, this is a dark fantasy novel. This is by Shannon J. Span. It's pretty new. I think it came out a couple months ago. February, I think. But this is a dark fantasy, or romantasy even. It has some romance in it. And I'm not going to give a lot away because I honestly believe you should go into this book blind. Basically, it's set in a theater type world. The immortal godlike creatures, the immortals, are called players, and they're the ones who put on the performances. And half of the country are the revelers who like the players and want to be players, and then the North are scared of players and think they're all bad, evil liars, because all stories are lies and all performances are lies, and acting is nothing but lies. So the North, they teach their children to really hate the players. Our main character, Ribbon Hesper, she comes from the North, so she's been taught this, but she finds herself caught up in a competition that the players are having in their playhouse, basically performing, try to outperform. Now, when they perform, they actually use magic in this world. So when they talk about reality suspension, they're actually suspending reality using magic. So anyway, they have this competition. They get in the auditionees, and the auditionees go against each other, and then they go against the players. And if you don't make the cut, like if you're an auditionee who doesn't make the cut, well, then you're unalived. Um, so, and that kind of puts the danger into the competition. So Ribbon finds herself caught up in this competition. I do want to make it clear, this is not just another Hunger Games retelling. It's not a copycat. There is the competition in here, but this book has lots of twists and turns. I don't know, maybe some people might complain it has too many twists and turns, but I didn't mind it. It just takes you on a real interesting journey. And especially if you like the theater. If you've ever been in the theater, this would resonate with you. I have to laugh. The scariest monster in the book is the stage manager, which if you've ever been in theater, you find how know how funny that is. Stage managers are scary. Oh, and another scary monster is the prop master, which is also, if you've been in the theater, also very funny. I've worked in the theater and I've been a prop master before, and of course we always have to yell at the actors not to play with the props. So we have to be scary. But anyway, that's that. I am currently in the middle of reading 3 books. This is Steeped in Lies. This is a series called the Irish Tea Room Mysteries. It is published by Annie's Publishing, which they publish magazines kind of focusing on quilting, knitting, crocheting, cross stitch. hobbies like that. And they also have subscription services where they send you materials and instructions on all those hobbies. But they also publish this little cozy mystery series. Um, this one is written by Jan Fields, but um, they have multiple authors. I have four of these on my shelf. I found them in a thrift book, but originally you would only have been able to get them by subscribing to Amy's Publishing themselves. I'm not going to say too much about this. It is a cozy mystery. It is what it is. Uh, the main premise is our main character, Penny Kavanaugh. She was born in Ireland, but her parents moved to San Diego, and that's where she was raised. But she decided to move back to Ireland to help her grandma run a tea shop. And on the way, while she's helping run the tea shop, she happens to run into some murder mysteries. So, basic cozy mystery. But I would like to, since I have four, I'm hoping to read very soon, read all four of these books that I have on my shelf. And I'd like to do a whole video on these books themselves. And I want to kind of explain to you guys why these cozy mysteries are actually valuable. They're, no, yes, I read Dostoevsky and I appreciate it. But I also read this and enjoy cozy mysteries. And a lot of people do. They're very, very popular. And, people say it's not high literature, but I just want to explain why it has its value in so many people's hearts. So, as Steeped in Lies from the Irish Tea Room Mysteries. I am also reading, and I haven't gone very far. I've basically just started The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Now, I've seen this around. I've always been intrigued by the Scorpion. This is a library copy that I got from the library. But this cover is really intriguing. But when I logged this into Goodreads, I found out that it doesn't really have that high of a rating. I thought it was kind of funny. I kind of assumed that this was a popular book as much as I've seen it around. But I don't pay attention to ratings anyway. I read what I want to read. And basically, again, I don't know too much about it. I just started. But basically, this is set in Madrid during the time of the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition. And our main character, Lucia, she can do magic, which is dangerous in its own right because the church in Rome, has declared that magic is not good, it's evil. So it's not good that she does magic, let alone the fact that she is hiding that she is Jewish. She believes in the Jewish faith. She pretends to be a Catholic. She will attend Catholic Mass just for the looks, but her heart and her faith is in the Jewish faith. And of course, her father was Jewish. I think her mother was too. I can't really I haven't really picked up on her mother's faith yet, but so she's, it would be very, very dangerous if higher ups or the church finds out that not only does she do magic, but that she's also Jewish. So she's in a dangerous situation here. But I've enjoyed it so far. I saw on Goodreads that a lot of the negative talk is that a lot of people didn't like the main character, and I can see that. She's kind of blunt and probably not the smartest thing. She does things that she wants to do instead of thinking things through. But I don't know. I like her. I kind of like people who tell it as it is. I have a tendency to sugarcoat things, so I admire people who could just be, this is what it is. Anyways, I'm also reading a wonder book and Tanglewood Tales. I think this is technically two books in one. And it's actually stories within a story. The framing of this is by Nathaniel Hawthorne, by the way. The framing of this is that there's this young man named Eustace who is very, very good at telling stories, and he has younger cousins he tells the stories to. So basically, they're just retellings of Greek myths and legends, and kind of in the way that Eustace, in a modern way, would tell it to his cousins, or at least modern, according to Nathaniel Hawthorne's time. I'm really enjoying this. These are all myths that we're all familiar with, but it's kind of fun to have them kind of retold in a young man's perspective. And I don't know why I don't read more of Nathaniel Hawthorne. I don't know how much he has written. I have read Scarlet Letter, but I don't remember much about it. I do remember liking it, though. I remember I got pleasure from it. It was a good experience for me. I remember the experience. Also, we read in college, we read Blithedale Romance, which I also really like. I do remember that one. So I remember I did like that. And of course, I've read some of his short stories. I don't know what else he has written, but I don't know why I don't get dive into him a little bit more because I do like his writing. I I don't know, just something I need to continue to do is pick up Nathaniel Hawthorne. It's something I suggest you guys do too if you haven't read him yet. He is a good writer. Okay, now I'm going to talk about my audiobook. So I don't have physical copies of these, obviously, um, but uh, I have listened to the Quest of the Gordon. The Quest of the Silver Fleece by W.E.B. Du Bois. This was written in 1911. And the the app that I listened to this from, it basically does free audiobooks. Uh, they're all public property, so they're all classics, all written. Sometimes they do originals that volunteers write for them, original stories, but mostly it's just classics in the public property. Um, and it did use AI, which I kind of didn't like. They used AI as narrators. So the app it's called Fabulate. It asks for volunteers to read. So a lot of the books are read by real people. Every now and then you will get a book read by AI. And I kind of don't like that. It doesn't have the emotion that I like. Um, but I could understand why this book was. I don't think you would be able to find anybody who'd be willing to read this book out loud. And the reason is okay, W.E.B. Du Bois was an African American writer in the turn of the 20th century, around 1911. And he was very bold in putting down on paper what it was like to be a black person in the United States at the time, especially in the South. And it was hard for me to read. It's hard for me to listen to injustices, and it's hard for me to listen to a certain word over and over again that was used by the white people in this book. So I can understand why nobody would want to volunteer to read that book out loud. I couldn't pay me enough. Um, However, I do recommend it. It's going to be hard. If you it's hard. History is hard, especially some of our American history. If the main premise of this book is that we have an African American young couple who want to uh, grow cotton on their own little swamp field, kind of secretly grow this cotton so the white people don't know that they're growing it. And their theory is that if they could grow it and make enough money off that cotton, then they could be rich enough to be free from the white people, really free from them, and not have to work for them or pay rent to them or anything. And the book also takes you to Washington D.C. so you can see the politics of the time, and it takes you to New York to see what it was like up in the north. The main part of the novel is set in Georgia, and I do recommend it because it was very, very well written. Um, However, I do warn it is hard. But another reason I recommend it is because we need to know what it was like. We need to know our history, even history that's disturbing, because if we don't know what it was like, we can't make the world a better place. You can't fix a world when you don't know what's wrong with it. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that. But speaking of disturbing history, another audiobook I'm in the middle of reading or listening to right now is The Women by Kristen Hannon. This is set during the Vietnam War, and it follows Frankie, or Frances is her name, but she goes by Frankie, and she becomes a nurse in the Vietnam War. And right now, in the part I'm listening to, we are in Vietnam with her, and it kind of shows very detailed descriptions of what it was like to be a nurse there. But from what I gather, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what I gather, the second half of the novel is going to be when she comes back to America and finds that not everybody has a real favorable attitude towards the war, or their veterans. And you find out the government has been lying to the people, the media has been lying, and especially women. People don't believe that women really experience what Frankie claimed she experienced. Um, so again, really hard history to read about. And I think that's where the rest of the book is going. Again, I'm not there yet, but from what I've heard, that's how it goes. Mm. So enough of those hard hitting audiobooks. Let's go to the book I'm reading with my husband, which is not very cheerful either. It's Wuthering Heights. Yeah, I have this in a copy of the Bronte sisters novels. It has Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, and Agnes Grey. And Wuthering Heights is right there in the middle. So the reason I'm reading this with my husband is because it is my favorite book in the whole wide world. He has known this about me ever since he's known me. It's part of who I am. I love Wuthering Heights. We went to go see the Emerald Fennell movie on Valentine's Day, and the cinematography was good. Soundtrack was good. The movie itself was a bunch of hot garbage. Sorry. I'm sorry for everybody who liked that, but how dare she do that to my book? It's like, how dare she do that to my story? So, no, I will not back down on that. I am sorry, but not sorry. It was a hot mess. So I wanted my husband to experience what Wuthering Heights was really about, but it took me a while to actually kind of pick up this book and read it with him because I was a little bit nervous about selling it to him. Wuthering Heights is kind of a hard book to sell to people who just don't get it. And I'm not saying that they're dumb or anything. No, I'm talking about the emotions. I'm the type who like to wallow in deep emotions. And that's pretty much what you get with Wuthering Heights. Just every kind of emotion to the extreme. And my husband, he's more stoic. He, sometimes pretends like emotions don't exist. So, if you're more a person like my husband, I can understand why this book will be annoying. My husband does say, we are reading it out loud. He does say, well, it's just a whole bunch of annoying people who make themselves miserable for no reason. And he's not wrong. He's right, technically. But some of us enjoy that and some of us don't. Now, I think my husband is enjoying this book. He obviously thinks it's better than the movie. And he does like the writing. And he understands why I like it. So we're having an interesting experience reading it. Also, when I say I read books with my husband, that means that I read out loud. My husband has poor eyesight, so it's basically me reading out loud to him. And it's been a different experience for me to read this out loud. I've heard this on audiobooks before, and I've read it over and over again to myself, but I've never really read it aloud to somebody. So it's kind of, when I get to put my voice to these characters and how I interpret they would sound, um, it's been an interesting experience for me. That's Wuthering Heights. Now, the books I'm reading with my daughter. Um, we are continuing on our journey with the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I think the last time I kind of checked up on you guys, we were in the middle of The Horse and His Boy. So we finished that, and we finished The Magician's Nephew. And we just last night started The Last Battle, which is the last book. Now we are reading this in publication order, meaning that we read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first. The box that we have does not put it in publication order, it puts it in chronological order, which means that The Magician's Nephew would be the first book. But I think it's important to read in publication order, the way C.S. Lewis meant it to be read. Um, uh, I think it's kind of best just to go into the Narnia through the wardrobe. That's the best way to be introduced to the world. So anyway, so we are reading it in publication order, and we are almost finished with that. And I think she likes it. She gets involved in it. I don't know. She claims she doesn't like fantasy though, and I think she prefers books about real kids and stuff. But she's getting into it. She's kind of sad that we're almost done with it. She was upset. Well, not upset, but she's like, oh, that's sad. Okay, we did read a library book that we got. I don't have the physical copy with me. We returned it, but it's excuse me, Emma McKenna Full Out by Kate Mesner. This is the first in a series called The Kids in Mrs. Z's Class, and each kid gets their own book, and the books are written by different authors. And so the first one is about Emma McKenna. Basically, she starts third grade in a whole new school in her town called the Curiosity Academy. And she's excited because she gets to meet a whole bunch of new kids and she wants to make a good impression and be friends with everybody. But the first day of school, Lucy walks into the class. Now, Lucy went to Emma's old school, and in fact, they were best friends at the time. But then something happened to their friendship, and Lucy came up with a really mean nickname for Emma. So Emma's now afraid, having Lucy in her class, that Emma's going to tell everybody about that mean nickname, and that the kids won't like her anymore. And then, you kind of figure out what happens in that story. So that was that. We also read number 4 in the series of Nancy Drew and Clue Crew. This is a series of Nancy Drew in the 3rd grade. And the 3rd grade is good. I don't know. There's something about the 3rd grade. They're getting longer books, but they're still young enough. So I'm kind of liking the stage my daughter is in, the grade my daughter is in. And I like it when we read books about 3rd graders. Anyway, this says it's written by Carolyn King. Obviously, Nancy Drew is old, but it's written by Carolyn King since the 1930s. This is called the Cinderella Ballet Mystery. And basically, Nancy, Bess, and George, the ballet studio is putting on the ballet Cinderella. And the studio ordered these special glass slippers from a company in France. So they were very expensive, and it took them a while to get those slippers because they came from all the way to France. But 2 days before the dress rehearsal, the slippers went missing. So it's up to Nancy and her friends to figure out what happened to those slippers. And our daughter and I were reading or rereading The Wild Robot. This is basically a robot gets shipwrecked onto an uninhabited island. It's habited by animals, but not people. So she finds herself out in the wild. And obviously she doesn't belong there. So it's about her getting adjusted. She has to get adjusted to the wilderness, and the animals have to get adjusted to her. So this is a reread, as I said. This is my daughter's favorite book. She told me this is hers, and so I'm happy to reread it with her anytime. Yeah. I'm glad she's found her story. So anyway, those are the books for April. Hope to see you next week. Got a new video for you next week. We're going to be doing something, a little bit of a special TBR, and that I'll introduce you to next week. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Like and subscribe if you don't mind, and if you like it at all. If not, hit the unlike button. That still helps. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some recommendations for all ages and classics, newer books. And I will see you later. Bye.